All right, so I'm Joe Pinto, one of the co-founders of the Haste Arcade, and you heard a little bit about that on the panel earlier. Tyler went into some of these statistics, but to give a little better demonstration of the gaming industry currently, $300 billion market. And like Tyler said, to put that in perspective, I want to hammer it home, that's bigger than film and music combined, okay? And then that stat that you see there on the left, that's going to show viewers of esports. That's the second line you see there from the top compared to the other major sports leagues in the United States. So what I want to drive home there is that esports is massive. Gaming is massive. In fact, in 2019, the League of Legends Championship had over 100 million people live viewing that while it was occurring, which was more people than were watching the Super Bowl that same year. It was about 98 million watching the Super Bowl. So the gaming industry, you have the game developers, you have the gamers. Obviously, we're an arcade. We need both. Game developers, you're looking at AAA studios, and you're looking at independent developers. Right now, we're more focused on indie developers, so those are going to be people that they can put out very quality games, but typically, they're going to be a little bit more hyper-casual. A AAA studio is going to be something that's going to produce, a video game that we've probably all heard of, like a Call of Duty or a FIFA or a major title that you'll see millions and millions of dollars of marketing money spent on as it's released. With that, only 5% of all these games end up turning a profit. So what I'm going to address in the next slide is there's a major problem here with monetizing from a game developer's perspective. And then the gamers themselves, something I actually wasn't really aware of, but 1 in 3 people in the world identifies themselves as at least a casual gamer. So we're talking about 3 billion people. Massive, massive industry, a lot of money going around. So the problems. From a game developer's perspective, you typically have 3 different ways that you're going to monetize your game. For a hyper-casual game, it's typically going to be with advertisements. Okay, so you start playing the game. Before you can get to it, you got to watch an ad, similar to if you're doing, a YouTube video or something like that. You also have the free model with in-game purchases, and then you have the last model, which is what most of the AAA games will be. You have the upfront expense. So you go and buy a major video game title. It's typically going to be about $60. And with each one of these, you have problems. So the advertisement model, obviously, like who enjoys watching ads? You can go ahead and raise your hand. Ads are annoying, okay? In terms of the free with in-app purchases, the problem there is more on the game developer side. If no one ever buys anything, you have no way of monetizing your game. So you're putting these time and resources into it, and if you're a casual game developer, that's cool. But if you want to actually generate some revenue, you're not guaranteed through this model. And then the last one, the upfront cost of AAA games, you're paying $60. That's a pretty large upfront cost for the majority of the world. So you're cutting off a major segment of the potential gamers that could be playing your game. And then on the flip side of that, I might not be that inclined to go and spend money on something that I've never actually played before. What happens if I spend my $60 and I hate this game? Which that happened to me once, and I was just like, man, this is a real bummer. So you have these major barriers of entry for the gamers. And then the last thing would be the life expectancy of games currently. The hyper-casual games, those can be addictive, but eventually once the fun wears off, that's it. There's no real incentive to go back and continue playing those games. AAA games, once you've beat the game, I guess Call of Duty could be, any game really with an online experience could be a little bit different, but really once you've gone through the storyline, you've beat the game, you've gotten your fun out of it, there's not really an incentive to continue playing once that's over. So that's going to limit how much revenue the game developers can make as well. So this is a video, we can cue it, on the Haste Arcade that's a little bit cooler than me.
Imagine going to your local arcade, inserting a quarter into the game, and posting a high score on the leaderboard. And then, everyone who comes after you and fails to beat your high score, you get a portion of their quarter every time. Now imagine placing that high score on a global leaderboard where millions of daily players are fighting for your top spot. This is a game changer. This is Haste Arcade. Jump in right now and play across multiple modern arcade-style games, earning cash instantly deposited to your hand cash wallet. Let's introduce Player Cards, the world's first output NFT. You can mint your own and gather others, from friends to top players. For any player card you hold, you earn a portion of each gameplay output. This is a Haste token. Earn them daily just for playing. They can be used to purchase things like prizes, player cards, and more. Trade them on exchanges or simply redeem them for cash. This is the next gen of gaming. Play, earn, grow on Haste Arcade.
Woo! You guys can thank Tyler from BBG. They put that video together for us. Much thanks. So what does Haste do to address those problems that I had just explained on the previous slide? Right? Let's start with the game developer business model. So micropayments. We hit on this. We saw the examples of people getting a fraction of a quarter sent to them if they're on a leaderboard. Well, the game developers, they also get one of those outputs. So for games that we've built in the arcade, for example, there's 14 games right now. 8 of them were created by third-party game developers who then we have a software developer kit where you can basically take our leaderboard structure and plug it into your game. So you can just focus on building a great game, and if you want to try a different revenue model as opposed to the 3 that we just saw, you can use this ILP concept and be generating revenue from the very first gameplay, since there is an output on each transaction for the game developer. And what that looks like, Dave from Unbounded wrote an incredible article about this about a week after our very first game came out. And he took this old game, Flappy Birds, from about, I think it was 2014. I don't know if anybody remembers that game, but it was one of those super silly games that you would play on your phone. You're flying the bird, pretty much an endless runner. Anyways, they had about 50 million users at its peak. And what Dave ended up finding out, or basically coming up with, was that they were doing just an advertising revenue model. And through that, they were generating about $60,000 a day in ad revenue, which that's a decent amount of money. However, if you were to take that same amount of people playing that game, use the instant leaderboard payout structure, and have people playing at a half-cent level, the game developers would have gone from making $60,000 a day to $2.8 million a day. It's a 56x increase in the revenue. So from a game developer standpoint, even on a super hyper-casual game, you can see a tremendous value in terms of where micropayments can come into play and how they can generate significant revenue. The other aspect is that if you're an indie game developer, one of the things that you're going to struggle with is getting people to play your game. You don't have a tremendous marketing budget. It's not easy for you to get people in your platform and playing. Well, because we have this arcade now with dedicated users, you have an instant user base. So not only are you going to be able to monetize from the very first gameplay, but you're also going to have a group of people who are ready to start playing these games. So it's kind of a two-sided thing when you submit games to the arcade as a developer. And then for the gamers, obviously, you have the incentive mechanism of being able to generate revenue from doing things that you're already doing in a very casual way, right? Like, I don't think most people would have a problem if they're going to go play a game, say, hey, you know what, I'll put a penny up on this, and if I do well, I'm obviously going to generate some money just from that gameplay. It's not going to be, tons of money, but I actually like, and I'll show you, you guys probably won't all be able to see this, but I'm on a decent amount of leaderboards, and these are my micropayments throughout the day. There's hundreds and hundreds. And if you actually want to see them like up close in person, I'll show you. It's not fake. So that's something that it's a constant reinforcement to the gamer themselves, getting these pings of micropayments. It's similar to like an Instagram when you post and you get a like. People have some type of necessity. They want to feel that fun, that adrenaline, that rush. And that's what these ILPs, these micropayments, enable. So obviously the other aspects, there's no advertisements. And in terms of gameplay life expectancy, where we talked about once you've played the game initially, the fun's worn off, there's not really an incentive to go back and continue playing, the revenue's over for the game developer. Well, now if I'm a gamer and I'm good at this game, it's become an income source for me. So I am going to continue playing that game. And that's what we've seen, is that these hyper-casual games that, they last 2 seconds, 3 seconds, people are playing them for months and months and months because they're just making money from it. So you have an extra incentive now to continue your gameplay, and obviously the game developers are going to be making a transactional revenue on each one of those gameplays as well. So in terms of the adoption, we really just kicked off in April with our actual marketing and go-to-market strategies. So far, we've seen pretty good growth month to month. Just to put that 30+% average increase in perspective, like Y Combinator, they recommend, or their kind of baseline is about 6%. So we think we're seeing some pretty good traction. We think that we're seeing gamers are actually, interested in this model and they find it fun, and that they're telling other people about it as well and getting more people into the ecosystem. We have been doing paid advertising campaigns, and something that I've always kind of questioned about the blockchain space in general is, when was the last time you were scrolling through Instagram or on YouTube and you saw an advertisement for a blockchain company that wasn't an exchange or that wasn't an NFT drop? I just haven't seen that much. And that's one of the things that we wanted to test originally was, let's get outside the quote-unquote crypto community. Let's target the 3 billion casual gamers that, 99% probably don't even know what crypto is if it's that many people. So that's what we've been doing. That's what we've been attracting. And like I said, I think the numbers are pretty encouraging thus far. I talked about the gaming partnerships already with BBG and with Tyler. We have a new one coming up. We're releasing a game on September 20th that I think I'm going to hit on the next slide. But basically, same concept, working with their streamers, giving them, their own specific tournaments, so things that their followers can now interact with on a more personal level and play within the, Malibu is one of their streamers, within her actual tournament for this game called Monster Bombs that we're going to be putting out. And then the last bit, because it is a two-sided market, developer competitions. Hosting developer competitions, working with Bitcoin Association, I went to school at USC in the gaming school over there, and basically just trying to get talented game developers to work with us, use our SDK, implement our leaderboard payout structure into the games that they're developing. So the roadmap, I mentioned this new game, Monster Bombs, something that I'm pretty excited about. We're going to be releasing a physical jersey that you can purchase, like a limited edition Haste Arcade jersey. But with that, you're going to get a digital copy in the form of an NFT that you can actually equip on that player tank there within the game. And we think that, obviously for us, that's kind of cool, but the implications for this, think about going to any Major League Baseball stadium. You go to Yankee Stadium and you buy a jersey physically. They hand you a little business card with a QR code on it or something like that. You can then sweep that NFT from that business card and assign that jersey that you just got custom made onto your player in MLB The Show. That's where I think this stuff could kind of go, and I think that we're going to be able to demonstrate some of that type of utility. So more games, that's obviously something that a lot of people have told us we need to add continuously to the arcade, get things in there that are fun. I've been told that our games are not that fun, which we don't take offense to. But yeah, that's definitely a big thing. New arcade modes. So right now what you guys have all seen is the instant leaderboard payouts. Obviously, you play, you get on the leaderboard. But for people that don't want to pay to play, but they're still interested in this idea of blockchain gaming, we have other game modes that are coming out. So for example, online poker is pretty popular around the world. Take that same concept of walking into poker rooms, apply it now to casual skill-based games where you can bet, 10 cents per gameplay. Stuff like that is what's being built. Communities is something that we're going to be working with BBG on in terms of specifically for like content creators and streamers, being able to build basically their own arcade experience in a white labeled setting and giving their followers more of their own content to engage with, giving them the ability to create what we call collectibles, which are in-game NFTs. So basically like that jersey right there, you could have a BBG jersey, same thing. So if I'm a BBG fan or Malibu, the example I was giving earlier, if she has her own jersey or her own brand or logo, allowing her now to create collectibles and sell those, and she's now generating revenue in a new way as well. And then something I'll touch on briefly, I'm not really supposed to talk about this, but new platform features. So we have the arcade, and the way that we view that is, you've got your classic arcade stand, you go and play Pac-Man on it, then you go home from the arcade and you have an actual gaming console. Well, we're working on a digital console that will be able to play much more sophisticated storyline type games. We're going to be calling them Voyages. And the thought process behind this, we released our first one a couple weeks ago called Darko, is the same way that people binge watch like Netflix shows. We think that there's a way where you can create a similar type of series where the actual viewer is participating, much more than just sitting on their couch and watching. So actually having a gameplay experience where you are making choices for the main character throughout the episode, and what you choose actually determines how the episode ends. So setting a release schedule for those, similar to any Game of Thrones or whatever the new one that they just came out with, and trying to build some type of hype where it's like, man, every Sunday there's a new Voyage that comes out, and I have to go buy those in the form of an NFT and play them on the Haste Fantasy console. So those are the things we're working on. That is what we are up to. And I have a couple more just images here of the arcade. That's our main page. These are some of the games. This is what a leaderboard actually looks like. But yeah, this is Tiger Run. This is the most recent game that came out. This is Forest and Fire. This was one of our very first games. This is Jump. This is probably the game that's gotten the most plays thus far. I think about 100,000 game plays on this one. The leader on this leaderboard has made, I think it's about $700 at this point from holding leaderboard spots at the various levels. And you guys can all go there right now. All these games are live, hastearcade.com. And if you think that it's fun when Zach is sending you a penny, like when your phone starts looking like mine for being on these leaderboards and you're getting, multiple pennies every hour, it's really something pretty exciting. So any questions, I'll be around, and I appreciate it.
Thank you, Joe. Let's give it up for Joe.